Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to the Operation Freedom platform. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. A little something special today. We're releasing a Insider Insight interview on our subscription platform that our subscribers asked that I get out to you right away. The interview was with Alex Newman from the New American Magazine. It's a phenomenal magazine. The website is thenewamerican.com, thenewamerican.com. In this interview, we tackle a number of issues that the bought-off lamestream fake media will not touch. The first is the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. There's some issues here, and it needs to be outed, and we need to get the attention of the president. And that's where you come in. You need to get on the phone and call the White House and ask that the president take a look at some of the issues that Alex brings up. He's very specific about this. In addition, we also tackle the Ukraine hoax, the Russian hoax, and money laundering operations, actually, that are occurring by the deep state, starting in South America and filtering their way into the political system in the United States. This is a third rail. The bought-off lamestream fake media does not want anyone to touch this. We do. I hope you enjoy the interview. I hope you'll network this interview to anyone and everyone you know. And I also hope you'll become a part of our subscription family, our freedom family at davejanda.com. $9 a month, I believe, one of the biggest bangs for the buck on the internet. This show that you're going to see today is the type of extra content you get as a subscriber and a member of our freedom family. I hope you'll join us. Thank you for your time today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. And now on to this two-part release with Alex Newman. Thanks for your time today. So Alex, you dissected this cartel, this money laundering, corrupt, terrorist-based, narco-terrorist-based organization, FSP, and you mentioned that this all had ties as well coming back to the United States. Have you unearthed any money ties coming from that narco-terrorist organization, FSP, that owns all these, this Bachelet and Lula and have you seen the money trail filtering into the political machine here in the United States?
What a good question, Dave. And actually, the links are starting to become more and more obvious. I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, a source in Bolivia sent me a picture of Obama sitting at a table in Colombia with the FSP agent who was running Colombia, Santos.
I find that shocking. Shocking.
Right. Shocking. I'm so surprised, right? Yeah. And then in addition to that, also sitting at the table was Marcelo Odebrecht. Right, one of the guys at the center of this corruption scandal in Brazil where they were looting taxpayers and then funding communist campaigns. They have deep tentacles in the United States. They have been funding Democratic campaigns. So this whole thing's out in the open in Brazil. It's just the Americans who don't know about it. Right? There's no more speculation. It's not secret. It's public knowledge. There's been convictions. Now, this same character who was stealing money from Brazilian taxpayers and funding Latin American revolutionaries was doing the same thing in the United States. And it goes even deeper than that, Dave. Let me give you another example. The Council on Foreign Relations that we talked about earlier, this hub of the deep state in the United States. Hillary Clinton, for people who aren't aware of this organization, said that the council, she said this in public, you can find the video on YouTube, the Council on Foreign Relations tells her what she should be doing and how she should be thinking about the future. So that gives you some sense of who we're dealing with here. Well, they're a senior fellow for Latin American affairs, the David and was it Nelson, maybe Rockefeller fellow for global governance in Latin America. Yes. A lady by the name of Julia Swig, S-W-E-I-G. Well, this lady, turns out, was a good friend of Fidel Castro, was a good friend of numerous communists across Latin America, very, very close to them. And we have a U.S. counterintelligence official who spent years tracking Cuban spies in the United States, identified Julia Swig as an agent of influence for the mass murdering dictatorship in Havana. So the ties between the U.S. elites and this corrupt Latin American network are very, very deep. They're very, very wide. In Brazil, this whole network is crumbling, right? Lula's in jail. His handpicked successor, Dilma Rousseff, not only got herself into big trouble, she was impeached, actually, for her corruption. And Jair Bolsonaro, and this story goes even deeper, too. The right-hand man of Mike Pompeo, a guy by the name of McKinley, was actually the U.S. ambassador in Brazil, working to try to stop Jair Bolsonaro from coming to power.
Oh!
That's a whole nother can of worms right there. But Jair Bolsonaro and his people are leading a counter-revolution in Brazil. They are getting these communist criminals dislodged from power at every level. A lot of them are going to prison where they belong. And let's hope that this counter-revolution that really took root in Brazil will spread all across the region. Hopefully it'll make its way up into Venezuela and into Chile. The socialists are already out of power in Chile. So very, very good things are happening. Now we need to hope that that same counter-revolution comes into the United States, and the communists that have been trying to hijack our government, that in many respects have hijacked our government, can be exposed and can be dealt with.
Couple questions. So what you just dropped on us is the administrative assistant to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, a guy by the name of McKinley,
senior advisor, yep,
was actively involved in trying to block Bolsonaro from coming into power. Bolsonaro has been called the Trump of Brazil, right?
Yeah, the tropical Trump. Yep.
Okay. So the senior advisor to our current Secretary of State, this guy McKinley, was actively involved in trying to block the Trump of Brazil, the Trump of Brazil, from coming to power.
That's right. And he was involved in Colombia with helping to bring the FARC to power. They came up with this
McKinley was,
yeah.
Oh.
He's got a lot of experience. He's actually married to a Bolivian woman who's about as anti-Trump as you can get. She posed publicly on her social media things that Trump is a bad guy and that how dare we have this kind of border security. I mean, and this is Pompeo's right-hand man, right? So we have deep state swamp creatures at the highest levels of power in Washington, D.C. And this is only scratching the surface, right? This is just what you can find from what's public. There's so much more going on behind the scenes. These people are crawling all over the State Department. They did their best to run Trump's people out of office. In fact, very successfully. A lot of amazing Trump picks at the State Department have now been removed. You have people in Congress going after them with a vengeance, a personal vendetta against these people, trying to get them fired from their new jobs. It is nasty. And I very much hope that the president will step in here, because a lot of his own people, he doesn't realize, are having their lives and their careers destroyed for trying to expose the very same things that Trump has been trying to do, trying to expose. So, so much going on here. The ties between the Marxists in Latin America and the criminals in the United States and the deep state are like this. And we really, really need to get these things exposed if we're going to have a hope of cleaning out the deep state and restoring our freedom here in this country.
So here's the deal, Alex. Pompeo's former director of the CIA. He has assets of determining backgrounds of people around him.
Oh, yes.
Senior advisor of his tried to block the Trump of Brazil, Bolsonaro, from becoming president. He worked with this, I don't know, I don't think I'm being rude here by saying that they're a narco-terrorist group, the FARC, down in Colombia, right?
Okay, all right. Mass murder.
So he was helping those dudes out. His wife is out there posting a lot of anti-Trump stuff. Well, let me ask you something, Alex. Maybe I'm just like a closed-minded old man, but if I was Secretary of State and I had this guy who had that background, whose wife was doing that, he sure wouldn't be my senior advisor, and he would be on a slow boat going down the Potomac somewhere.
It's very troubling, Dave. I would like to know what's going on, too.
Well, and it goes back to first part, what we talked about the USMCA. I mean, these are the people that are giving advice to these officials, including the president.
Yep. And, you can try to come up with innocent explanations, but it's true. Pompeo has the means at his disposal to find out basically everything about everyone. He should know very well who his inner circle is, who their spouses are. And if he doesn't, that's incompetence of the highest order if he does and hired them anyway. And this McKinley guy is a career guy from the State Department. He's been around in the State Department for decades and worked his way up very high. And so Pompeo might say, well, he's just a career guy. He knows how this works, so that's why I'll have him as my senior advisor. But why would you do that when the guy has been involved in all this Obama stuff and all this crazy stuff happening in Latin America, when his wife is openly hostile to your boss's boss? I mean, why? These are questions that ought to be asked. These are questions that ought to be answered. And these are questions that the media doesn't even want Americans thinking about. Instead, they'd rather focus on fake news and fake scandals that they create. All of this is a big problem, David.
Okay. Now, Alex, you mentioned a little bit ago about this picture of Barack Obama in South America, huddled up with some of these, I don't know, representative, one that was involved in the whole money laundering operation, and one
Marcelo Odebrecht, a key guy. I mean, this guy is a flagrant criminal who was robbing Brazilian taxpayers to support communist and socialist candidates all across Latin America, and to pad his own pockets and to bribe Brazilian politicians. Incredible. Sitting at the same table with Barack Hussein Obama and with Santos, President Santos of Colombia, who pretended to be a conservative, but everybody knew. I mean, we've been reporting this in the New American for years. This guy was an agent of the Foro de Sao Paulo. He came up with an agreement to share power with the FARC, a Marxist communist terrorist group that for 50 years has been terrorizing, brutalizing, and murdering Colombian people, on the verge of being totally annihilated, right? President Uribe had these guys in their last little bastion of the forest, hiding desperately in the trees to avoid being completely eliminated. And then Santos comes along and says, hey, let's have a peace agreement. We'll negotiate it in Havana, and then we'll give you guys seats in Congress. We'll give you tons of money. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable stuff. And there is Santos, Obama, and Odebrecht sitting at a table enjoying a meal. Isn't that cute? Somebody ought to be
the only guy that's missing from this equation, too bad, Pablo Escobar would have been perfect at that table, right? Right? Oh, he died a little too soon. It would have been perfect.
Right.
Do you have a date on that picture? When was that picture taken?
That's a good question. My guess is probably 2015 or 2016, but I need to go back and check. I just received it yesterday.
So he was still president?
He was still president, I believe, yes.
Oh, how special. All right. Well, while he was still president, that brings us to another. We talked about money laundering coming into this country. Tell me if I'm wrong, but this whole Ukrainian hoax thing is kind of backfiring on the people who brought it up, because it's actually outlining a money laundering operation through the Obama administration that was occurring through Ukraine and through China. Am I off?
You're exactly right. It's actually, you almost look at this and you're like, wow, those guys really walked into a big pile of, excuse my French, but manure, right? Mm-hmm. They really messed this one up. And now it just came out very recently that the Ukrainian prosecutor who Biden got fired was investigating the company, Burisma Holdings, that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, served on the board for $50,000 a month to do, who knows what. I guess it's nice to have a last name Biden. You get nice gigs like that, right? $50,000 a month. That's what most Americans make in a year. And when the prosecutor comes in and says, hey, there looks like to be some corruption here, you get a phone call from Joe Biden. Your boss says, hey, you fire this guy or $1 billion in aid is going to dry up. This is corruption of the highest order, and it's all being exposed thanks to this ridiculous impeachment scandal that the Democrats manufactured. It's very interesting to see.
Well, interesting. Remember, early in this conversation, you talked about the Council on Foreign Relations. Globalist confab of just horrendous programs they've implemented and operations. Joe Biden is on videotape at the Council on Foreign Relations, right? Bragging about how, in 6 hours I was there and told him that if you don't fire this guy, we're cutting your aid. Now, Alex, I'm a little old country doctor, but to me, that sounds like a quid pro quo like no other.
It sure does. It sure does. It sounds like this Ukrainian prosecutor was doing the right thing, and the administration in the United States did not want that to happen. And quid pro quo is exactly what this seems like. You do this, you quit investigating my son's company, and we will loot, really, American taxpayers for $1 billion and send it on over to you. I mean, that is criminal. And it looks like this is all going to be coming out in the open now. Giuliani's got the notes. Giuliani's got the documents. I have a feeling this is not going to end well for the Democrats. And so they'll manufacture new fake scandals, and the fake news will dutifully report it. But the truth is coming out, and I don't see how they can put this genie back in the bottle.
I don't either. It really is falling apart at all levels. And, you know, it was reported early on that this whistleblower, and I really don't refer to this person as a whistleblower. I really refer to them as a gossip blower, because this was second and third hand information, not primary source information that they were bringing forward. That this individual reportedly had ties to the CIA and had been an employee of the CIA, was reported early on, and then went to work into the White House and then was pulled back out of the White House, and that this individual had ties still going back into the NSC and other organizations, and this is this person who has been deemed this whistleblower that I call a gossip blower. That being the case, it appears that the CIA then has been integral in this whole Ukraine hoax issue. We know from before the CIA was integral in the Russian hoax issue. We know from reporting of Fanning and Jones and a number of other individuals, and General McInerney, Admiral Lyons, who come forward on my show, that the CIA was integral in the illegal surveillance platform of the Hammer, which was actually utilized to gain information that was eventually used in the Russian hoax operation. Alex, if someone said to me, what percentage of the CIA do you think is honest and legitimate and working for the interests of the American public? And I guess I'm a really bad guy, Alex, because my answer would be, other than the person in the lobby at the reception desk and the janitors and the people in the cafeteria, I don't think there are any. Am I wrong on that?
I think you're right on the money, Dave. And it's sad to say that, you know, but I think all the way back to the very beginning, you know, if you go back to the genesis of the CIA, even before there was a CIA with the OSS, I mean, this was an agency that was out of control. And you would think that would almost happen naturally, right? When you have all this power and all this secrecy and nobody can know what you're doing, not even Congress, you have all this black operations money, nobody knows. You know, the exact wrong kind of people are attracted to those kinds of institutions. So we have evidence, again, going back all the way to the OSS. You know, this was just to give people a sense of how bad this is. Dick Novak wrote a column in the Washington Post saying that the OSS had been infiltrated by communists. And the head of the OSS Society, like for OSS veterans, actually responded with a letter to the editor in the Washington Post, and he said, "We weren't infiltrated by communists. We hired them, right, deliberately." And this has continued all the way to the present day. If you look at their involvement, for example, in Cuba, it was because of the CIA and because of the people from the Council on Foreign Relations that Cuba was surrendered to the communists. They demonized President Batista. They painted Fidel Castro. The New York Slimes, actually the CFR member who was writing for the New York Slimes, Herbert Matthews, said he was the George Washington of Cuba. A mass murderer. It was an anti-communist, right? This is what they told the American people. This is what the criminals at the State Department and the CIA were trying to sell to the American people. So they put an arms embargo on the pro-America U.S. ally Batista. Well, certainly wasn't perfect, but at least he was pro-America. They said, you can't use any of our tools. You can't use any of our people, nothing, to fight back the communists. And this continued, again, all the way to the present day, to the point where Obama's director of the CIA could, in public, say, "Oh yeah, I told the CIA back in the early '80s that I had voted for Gus Hall for president in the 1970s." This guy was the Communist Party USA candidate for president, a known agent of the Soviet dictatorship. And you know, in a sane world, they would say, "Well, that would get you fired, right? You would never work in the U.S. government again." That's crazy. What happened instead? He was promoted on up through the ranks until he eventually became the head of the CIA. That does not happen in an institution that's run by patriotic, God-fearing, Constitution-supporting American citizens. So this is it's corrupted from top to bottom, And it can't be trusted. It's time, and nobody dares to say anything about it because they know the CIA. Dianne Feinstein tried to investigate their torture. What'd they do? They hacked into the committee's computers and deleted evidence and put false evidence and started spying on members of Congress. If they'll do that to members of Congress, what do you think they'll do to you? Right? This is absolutely out of control. It needs to be reined in. And I think you're right, Dave. I can't imagine that there are many decent people in the CIA today.
The person you were talking about is John Brennan, the former director of the CIA under Obama. He was integral in the Hammer illegal surveillance program with Clapper, as well as involvement of Obama. He also was one of the key players in the direction of the Russian hoax attempted coup of President Trump. And also it appears he has been involved in the Ukraine issue. This actually came out from Rush Limbaugh a couple days ago, that Brennan traveled to the Ukraine on April 12, 2014. He landed in Kiev. He had a diplomatic passport under a false identity. Now, the Obama administration ended up fessing up that was in fact true. So you want to know the nexus of the Ukraine issue, you probably don't have to look much further than not only Joe Biden, but John Brennan.
Yep. And Comey and Hillary. And it's just, the cesspool is so deep and so putrid that if we don't manage to clean this out, it may well swallow up our country whole. So, it's now urgent that we have serious investigations, serious prosecutions, because, this stuff is not about disagreements in policy, right? Disagreements in policy are one thing. This is criminal. This is, conspiracy stuff, and it cannot be allowed to go unpunished. And it extends to all these different issues too, Dave. You know this as well as anybody. When Trump said that Hillary Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama were co-founders of ISIS, he wasn't kidding, right?
No,
he knew what was going on, because Mike Flynn knew what was going on. We have smoking gun evidence now that these people deliberately allied themselves with Al Qaeda in Syria, deliberately tried to create what they call the Salafist principality in Defense Intelligence Agency documents in eastern Syria. That's not even criminal anymore. When we're talking about allying with people who are supposedly at war with the United States, that's now into the realm of treason. So, there are so many scandals. Any one of these would be enough to put somebody into prison for life, if not, the gallows. And yet here they all are running around being put on CNN talking about how Trump needs to be impeached. It's total crazy town, and it's time we get some sense of sanity back.
Alex, what should our listeners do? Because many people become very frustrated when they hear all this information, the facts that you put on the table, and they say, okay, I've had it. Enough. But I don't know what to do. What do people need to do?
I think the first step, and I don't think there's going to be any chance of restoring our republic without this step, is educating the American people. Because, we all recognize Congress is absolutely bonkers. It's filled with criminals and liars and cutthroats and thieves. But guess what? We elected those people. I mean, in some cases. We have
and keep electing
California's them. That's right.
Not just
California, that's a different story because, the vote fraud, and Illinois and New York, in those cases, we may not have elected them. But when you get to the bulk of Congress, we elected those people. And the consequences of not dealing with this are going to be huge. But the only way to deal with it is to have an informed electorate. There's no silver bullet that's going to allow us to fix this. So Trump is doing his part, holding back the forces of evil, exposing them, doing what's right, trying to make America great. But unless and until the American people as a whole, and we don't have to educate every last person. There's still 6% of people who believe CNN, and I'm afraid those people are probably irredeemable. You can't help them at this point anymore. You just pet them on the head and let them be.
Right out that window. People's Republic of Ann Arbor, Alex.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think the first step, Dave, and it's so important, is that we educate our communities, educate our neighbors, educate our city councilors, educate our state representatives, educate the opinion molders in our community, and beyond that, also our own children, right? It's important that we raise up children who have an understanding of who we are as a people, right? Our American heritage, our great heritage of liberty, and who we're dealing with, the deep state and what they want to enslave us all. if we don't have a population that understands these things, we're never going to be able to fix this mess. So, I would say that's step one, Dave. And then after that, start clearing out Congress. Just work on the House of Representatives. If we had 218 good guys in the House of Representatives, we could turn this whole ship around right now. But the only way to get there is to have an educated public, and that is only going to be possible if people listening to this broadcast get out there and pass this information on. Share this broadcast with people. Get a copy of the New American Magazine. I don't have one handy, but maybe I do. Here it is. Yep. Get a copy. Here's one, right? Yeah. Police Under Fire. Get a copy of the New American Magazine and give it to your neighbors. Give it to your doctor. Give it to the radio host that's so popular in your local community so that we can inform the citizenry. And once we have an informed and educated electorate, then we can get to the hard work of restoring our republic.
Alex, folks need to follow you on a very regular basis. How do they do that?
Well, thank you very much, Dave. And I just so appreciate what you do as well. Your show is just critical to getting good information out. If people want to follow me, thenewamerican.com is where most of my in-depth investigative articles go. You can get daily headlines in your email, and you can subscribe to get the print magazine delivered to your house twice a month. I'm on social media also. It's AlexNewman_JOU on Twitter. On Facebook, it's just Alex Newman. And then my articles appear in lots of different places as well. So if you're interested in a particular thing, just put my name in a search engine. I'm now writing at the Epoch Times. I've got my own website is libertysentinel.org. I do my education blog at freedomproject.com. It's called the Newman Report. And so lots of different stuff. I try to post as much as I can on social media, so that's as good a place as any to start.
And the website for The New American is thenewamerican.com.
thenewamerican.com. That's right. And right across the top there on the top right, you'll see the place to subscribe to the daily headlines if you want the most important news every day. And then if you click the subscribe button, you can subscribe to the print magazine if you want to do that as well.
Alex, I'd like to thank you for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. You are a beacon, an absolute beacon of truth. It shines it on the deep state on a minute-by-minute basis, day-by-day basis. And in so doing, you bring back and enhance our freedoms and liberties. And actually, I believe the deep state is in the process, and some people might believe it's hopium, but I believe it is true. The deep state is in the process of melting, of imploding. And you've had a huge part in that. And I thank you for that, Alex, because you've put your life on the line in so doing. And very few people would have done that.
Well, the feeling is mutual, Dave. I mean, your show is just indispensable viewing for people who want to understand this and who want to play an active part in helping to restore our freedoms and our republic. I agree with you. I think the deep state is backed into a corner right now. They're very dangerous because they know they're losing their grip on power. They've lost control of the narrative. They can no longer manipulate the people. And it's because of shows like yours, because of truth getting out to the American people through alternative channels, through shows like this, through the internet, that they now have lost complete control of the narrative. That's why they're in so much trouble. So, we got to keep them on defense, charge, right? So thank you so much, Dave. I sure appreciate you and your show and all the listeners out there. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Alex. Folks, as we always sign off, until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Thanks for your time. Dream big and dare to fail. Actually, Alex is truly the epitome of that, dreaming big and daring to fail. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off.